Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RevIO Virtual Summit panel, Innovating for the Future in a Challenging Present. My name is Hampton Harrison. I'm the Vice President of Onboarding here at RevIO. We'll be leading today's conversation. We've got a great panel of guests lined up to provide diverse, meaningful insight into how their companies are continuing to stress innovation in today's unexpected environment. Our panelists today will include Forrest Durr, President at AltaWorks, Brian Greer, Partner and CRO at TaxConnects, and John Dabrowski, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Zinier. Now, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way that companies function, as well as how they plan and innovate for the future. Our hope is that today's conversation will help you take away ideas and best practices to help your company navigate today's challenges and grow for the future. We've got a range of topics that we'll cover in today's session, and we'll try to leave some time for Q&A at the end. So first, I'd like to start by giving each panelist an opportunity to introduce themselves as well as their companies. So Forrest, why don't you start us off?
Yes, I'm Forrest with AltaWorks. I've been with the company for about 5 years. Started at an office furniture company, spent 18 years cutting my teeth there. And we are a white label UCaaS platform that have strong relationship with AT&T and the Partner Exchange.
Great. Brian, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Brian Greer. I'm one of the partners and, as Hampton said, the CRO at TaxConnects. TaxConnects is a sales and telecom tax consulting and outsourcing organization. So what we do is we help businesses identify, determine what their sales and telecom tax requirements are, and then we also step in on an outsourced basis to help prepare and file those returns. So happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity, Hampton.
Thanks, Brian. John, why don't you bring us home?
Hello, everyone. My name is John Dabrowski. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Zinier. We help field service teams on the front lines, essentially who are keeping our world running right now. And the Zinier Field Service Automation Platform leverages AI and automation to help companies with efficiencies, such as working smarter and working safer. Customers like Black & Veatch in Kansas City and leading telecom companies in Mexico leverage the Zinier FSA platform to optimize their field operations.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Thank you to everybody else for your time and joining us today. I think we're going to cover a lot of great topics that are going to help the attendees take those ideas away. So I'd like to kick things off first by proposing a question to the group and just thinking about where ideas come from inside of your organization. And specifically, how do your employees bring forward ideas that could be beneficial to your customers and your company? Forrest, I guess we could start with you if you don't mind going ahead.
Yeah, sure. So we made a commitment to our employees to allow them to have buy-in to the company. And so part of our strategy is to have a profitability share with our employees as they bring ideas that can improve efficiencies. And one of the apps that we use to accomplish that is an app called TinyPulse. And TinyPulse is an app that you can integrate with Teams and Slack and other applications. And it really allows a seamless way for any of our team members to make a suggestion and offer an improvement, either in their space or in another person's space. And it allows us to track those suggestions from under consideration to in progress, and then actually have them out as wins that everybody can see when a suggestion is implemented completely. And it's been pretty successful for us.
That's great. John, how about you?
I think it starts with our value of AI as aggregated intelligence. So at Zinier, idea collaboration is essentially our default way of working, as a lot of you already know. And then internally at Zinier, we do have a mantra of be your own CEO. So this includes generating ideas and approaches to the marketplace. And this also includes executing on said ideas, assuming they're in the best interest of the customer and of the company. And because our company is globally distributed across several continents, we often spin up growth teams or tiger teams to ideate on projects and initiatives. An idea could start in a Slack channel, we use Zoom, and then we eventually create a Monday.com board to track project success. So we've had some interesting projects and ideas lately, including some next-gen offerings and workflows for certain key subverticals like telecoms, tower industry, or the fiber sector.
Fantastic. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, so with Text Connects, you could consider us to be probably a smaller organization. There's about 50 of us in total in the business. So the structure we have in terms of bringing forth new innovative ideas is pretty informal. We don't necessarily have a specific app that we utilize per se, but because of the proximity of all the employees, it's a relatively horizontal organization in terms of there's not a lot of layers. So from the staff person all the way to our managing partner, there's usually only one level in between there. So it's just more of a communicative type of environment, close-knit type of environment. So we're always open to those new ideas being presented by our staff. And I think the key for us is just to have that open mentality in terms of, none of us know all the answers. So specific for me, I'm very dependent upon my sales and marketing staff to bring new ideas to me. Hopefully, if you talked with any of my staff or certainly anyone within the organization, I think you would hear that we are very open to those ideas. And I think it's just having that flexible, open communication, which has been key for us.
It's interesting. I hear from the informal approaches like you described all the way up to almost a formal app like Forrest was describing. But I think the theme there is just the empowerment that you're providing to your team and getting those ideas pushed out inside the organization. So we talked about that internal approach, but what about your customers? What channels of communication exist out there for their voice to be heard and to affect future innovations in your products and your services? And I guess, Brian, if we've got you warmed up, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, for sure. In similar, in terms of the internal structure, we have a lot of direct communication with our clients. So the practitioners that work with our clients are in almost daily communication with the clients. And the clients will bring forth ideas from time to time. As an example, this was fairly recently in filing tax returns for our clients. Sometimes the jurisdictions will send some type of notice or communication to us. And the client wants to have visibility and access to that type of information. So we didn't have a mechanism to allow the client to see that before. So we heard that from multiple clients and then took that also to some of our larger clients and said, would it be beneficial if we created some type of platform or some type of ability for you to have access to and visibility into those notices? And it was something that they received very favorably. So we built that into our client portal and launched that and have had very good success with that.
Fantastic. Forrest, anything that you have?
Yeah, again, going back to apps and automation, we use Zendesk for working with our clients, whether it's support or project management or implementation or billing. And we have triggers in there to create surveys after tickets are closed out to get feedback and make sure that everything looks good. And also, do they have any suggestions for improvement? But congruent to that, we have our retention team that reaches out to our clients on a regular basis to talk about what opportunities they have, what struggles they're having with the internet and the changes in the economy as well as the global environment. Customers are rapidly requiring technology changes. And so the only way to successfully keep up with that is to reach out to the customers on a regular basis and make sure that they have what they need.
Follow up to that. What's been your response rate? Because we use Zendesk a lot for our organization as well in terms of getting the surveys back. Have you had good feedback from percentage response rate? How has that been for you?
I think it's improved recently just with the way technology has been and the remote working. We've actually had a lot more tickets just because of the remote workload and people working remote. So we've gotten more feedback than we were getting in the past.
Got it. John, anything you wanted to add?
It's a good question. I mean, we focus on customers first. That includes very specific use cases and scenarios. We always try to be purpose-built based on a specific customer scenario. We also have customer success managers. For the price of admission with our field service automation software, we include CSMs to help customers with digital transformation. So This includes having the CSM sitting with the customers, rolling up their sleeves, understanding the customer's business processes and goals, and frankly, perspectives. Thirdly, I'll mention our co-founders, very product-centric, very engineering-centric. Again, that roll up the sleeves mentality type of folks working with customers. And then lastly, but not leastly, the partners. We work with key partners such as Rev.io for customer feedback and real ideas for innovation.
Got it. So there's a lot of good takeaways there as well. But we've talked about the internal aspect of it and getting it from your internal team as well as going out to your customers and gathering that information. What does the validation process look like for those ideas once you have them, once they've come in and you're able to take them and say, all right, how are we going to ensure this is something that's relevant to the market itself?
Is that for me?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Why don't we start with you on that one?
I think it's an aggregate effort. I mentioned our founders, Arka and Andrew. Quick story about how Zinier came about. They were roommates and had started a different company altogether. And then the idea for Zinier was brought to Andrew's alma mater, Stanford University, and Stanford's StartX Tech Incubator. So StartX it's designed to develop the highest Stanford entrepreneurs in terms of their deep Rolodex and founders of 450 companies, $3 billion in funding. So that validated the idea. And then again, customers telling us what they want, what they need, and really trying to optimize their field service operations. I think thirdly, again, that partner ecosystem. Partners are in the field, sleeves rolled up, experiencing those real world scenarios. An example, our partner Red Mountain Scientific is image analytics and data acquisitions via drones. So our contact there, our main partner, has climbed over 500 cell towers in his career. Our investors, Nokia, Qualcomm, Tiger Global, but even our competition. I think our competition's experienced interesting change, evolutions, and even fallen away over time. So we try to glean different things from those experiences with our competitors. And then frankly, compelling events, whether it's COVID or again, that decommissioning of our competitors and other more time-sensitive items.
Got it. How about you, Forrest?
Yeah, suggestions, they come from employees, they come from customers, come from partners. And what we do is we roll those up to our leadership team. And our leadership team's got a lot of experience, has seen a lot of things in the market. And we take those suggestions to heart, look at them, make sure that they are something that's valid, something that would be a benefit to everybody involved. And then depending on where the suggestion needs to go, we may pass it to another team like a support or fulfillment or implementation team to actually take that project and implement it throughout the organization. But really our leadership team is the key integral part that we take all suggestions seriously and we look at every one of them.
How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I'll kind of wrap up this section of it here, and I'll talk about it from the perspective of the technology that we utilize in our business it's really an internal technology. So the customer generally doesn't interact with it. It's serving our internal customer base, so to speak. And we have a technology roadmap. We have very frequent monthly meetings to review that roadmap and to really spell out what we're going to do over the next 3 months, the next 6 months. And we're always looking at it in terms of how do we balance in our world risk versus efficiency. So in filing a return and paying taxes, there's a lot of cash that we often handle for our clients. So there's risk there that we get it reported to the right place. And so we can build in a lot of functionality that maybe it's driven by the ownership group to say this is going to reduce our risk. But then when we look at our user community, it may completely devastate the efficiencies from their side. So we got to balance that out and take that to both user groups in terms of the actual users of the technology, the owners of the business, and make sure we've got a good balance of risk versus efficiency in our case.
Yeah, I like that thought process of looking at it from multiple angles and not just thinking about it kind of like you said in a linear fashion, like point A to point B. There's multiple touch points that might be happening there that you have to think about on the impact. One follow-up I had on that, and this could be for, I think, Forrest is, or John, how do you measure the success of an innovation once it's been launched? You've done your validation, you've gone through the process of saying, okay, we think this is something that the market's going to be receptive of. How are we going to judge that once it's already in the market? Once it's in flight, how are we going back and checking, saying, did we validate that appropriately? And is it something that we're able to measure to get, an ROI on?
Who do you want to go first?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Hop in.
Obviously, if it's an external solution that the customer has brought forth, then sales is where we're going to be able to see a trend to verify and validate that the suggestion and automation improvement was a valid improvement that is successful. We've had suggestions by customers that we took and implemented, and then discovered later that it was not exactly what everybody needed. It was what they needed, and maybe what a couple other people needed. But I think from that standpoint, the truest measurement is sales and adoption, and are the customers actually using it?
Yep. Have you seen cases where you've actually had to modify it once it's in the market, or is it just one of those things where you analyze it, you try and push it as it is? What is the kind of the step once you say, hey, there's probably some adjustment that might be needed here?
I can't think of one that we didn't adjust after getting in the marketplace. It's just, you can't think of everything. So
right. That's a good point. And John, I'd also like to hear you on that one as well.
We're seeing the same thing. It's interesting. We come up with 10 ideas a day on how to help the marketplace, and we have to vet those, step through it, and then associate some metrics. So we'll do a sprint, or we'll do a campaign, or some kind of skunk works, depending on the scenario. And we try to be agile about it and be methodical, but a lot of those fall away. Just they don't meet the metrics, or it's good for one customer in a niche, but it's not good for the broader industry. So we really have to weigh that literally daily in terms of how to gather resources internally and resources with a customer and in the partner ecosystem. And it's that 80-20 rule of what hits and what helps and what optimizes for customers versus either being, too cutting edge, too bleeding edge, or too kind of away from the focus of the industry.
You mentioned a point there about resource allocation too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how are you measuring that, and how does that go into the impact of a decision on innovation? And I'll open that up to any of the three.
Yeah, I'll just quickly state that we always try to help customers do more with less. So whether that's in terms of their workforce, or whether it's being an extension of the customer for innovation, it's interesting. And we struggle with that internally as well. There's always an opportunity cost. Our team alone, in terms of their focus and their bandwidth. So having some metrics to wrap around a great idea seems to validate so we can take things to the next level.
Excellent. All right, I guess switching gears and thinking more in the terms of the current environment and what we're facing with the COVID pandemic. What has been the impact of the pandemic on your existing plans, and how do you adjust, as I said, on the fly for your innovations and plan and execution, and maybe examples where you had something planned at the beginning of 2020 and you ran into situations where this new environment has really impacted the existence of that moving forward, or just how we're introducing it into the market and how we're going to be introducing it to our customers. So again, I'll open it up to any one of the three that has an idea on that one they'd like to share.
Yeah, Hampton, this is Brian. I'll kind of jump in on this. One of the key things that happened, not necessarily to us, but it happened to our clients, and we had to adjust, is that when the pandemic first hit, I guess mid to late March, the state started to extend filing deadlines as well as initiate payment deferrals. So we weren't sure which clients and how many clients would be willing and wanting to take advantage of those scenarios. So we had to adjust pretty quickly in terms of how do we want to manage this. It sounds fairly straightforward on the surface in terms of just delaying a filing or delaying a payment, but there was a lot of, I don't want to say new infrastructure, but there was a lot of planning that had to go into place in terms of how were we going to respond to that. In addition, we had to reach out to each one of our clients and at the very least, make them aware of the opportunity, because I don't think all of them knew about it. So we did have to make them aware of it. Not many people, not many businesses actually took advantage of that payment or filing deferral, which actually made our lives a lot easier as a result. But there was a lot to change and a lot to adjust, very quickly inside of a couple-week period.
Got it.
And I guess the overall theme again there, probably you've heard me say it a couple of times before, was just maintaining the flexibility, maintaining the communication with the internal, the external client, and then just being flexible to adjust.
Sure. And Brian, you obviously work in a very regulatory heavy industry. How are you monitoring kind of that aspect of it and envisioning, the PPP and all these things that you hear going on with the way our government is handling it? How are you guys staying in touch with what you were expecting and how that's going to influence your roadmap?
Yeah, so we definitely have a lot of, I guess, feelers out in terms of communication with jurisdictions, communication with clients as well. We subscribe to various, research tools and various software technologies that keep us up to date on some of those changes. But it's impossible, I think, even for a business like ours that focuses 100% in this area, to be aware of everything at all times. It is a very constantly changing world. So we do our best to stay up to date with it. We're always ready to jump in and do some additional research if there's something new that we find out about, though.
That's great. Yeah, I think you made the understatement of the conversation there by saying the unexpected and the unknown. I mean, that's been the theme of 2020. But yeah, thank you for that. Forrest or John, do you guys have anything you want to add there?
I think the biggest thing for us that's changed and impacted our existing plans is we had about 12 trade shows scheduled for this year, and that's where we meet a lot of partners and make a lot of relationships, and that has been tremendously turned upside down. But we've done is retool our efforts and focused on email marketing. And people say email marketing's dead, but I'm telling you it's not. It does work. And so we've been doing a lot of email marketing and a lot of webinars that have been effective at generating leads and business and helping us to continue to grow even during this crazy time.
How about the messaging there, though? You say it's working. Has the messaging itself changed at all in terms of your approach? Or is it you're kind of working with the tried and true and what's worked in the past?
We're definitely doing the tried and true things, but we are changing it up. I mean, definitely people's priorities have changed and their focus has changed. And so we've had to change the messaging to try to get people's attention. But you throw the word COVID in, and how do you respond to COVID? And usually that gets people's attentions.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. It's interesting. The trends towards intelligent automation have actually favored us at Zinier. We're seeing this trend towards touchless experience across different industries, and enterprises that are relying on field service or field service automation. That FSA platform has stepped in as workforces have stepped out. So our agility as a company has allowed us to help customers address this new situation. We've actually created a COVID new normal type offering where you could have COVID vetted field techs and really automate the scheduling and dispatch on the fly. And then secondly, when they're in the field, allowing that mobile task experience of say PPE, personal protection equipment, checking in on the right latitude, longitude, taking a picture, that kind of stuff. It's a strange new world.
Yeah, certainly. And that was kind of leading to my next question. And you gave a great example there, John, but what are the specific opportunities to innovate that have come out of this? I think we think of challenges as just something that weighs on us, but what are the ways that maybe you guys have seen new opportunities come out of these challenges that have really maybe not been something you had considered in the past?
Well, I'll say that video conferencing is not something that we focused on as a product, but we have received an extreme amount of demands for video conferencing to be a part of our hosted voice platform. And we've launched it and we're working through it and learning it. But I really thought that, just with all the other providers that were out there, that there would not be a competitive advantage for us, but to have your voice and your video conferencing all in one platform and all in one place seems to be a resonating theme for people.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback on that for us in terms of, from a sales and marketing perspective, the service we deliver, I think it requires a significant amount of trust from a client perspective before they decide to outsource to us. And I think a couple of things. I think one, the video conferencing has allowed us to, continue to form that link, directly with that client and help build that trust with them. An additional area that we're looking at right now is developing some type of customer testimonials. We've got static testimonials in terms of written print, but to create something where it's a video testimonial that we can share with new prospects. We had talked about doing that a couple of years ago, but it's kind of accelerating the requirement for it given our current situation.
That's great. I've heard the video conferencing thing mentioned a couple of times here. I'd be curious from each of your vantage points, how much were you doing virtual meetings and virtual business in the past, before and currently now? And how did your employees, how well adjusted were they to move to this environment? And how did you help them if it wasn't a situation where they were very familiar with it?
I'll take that one. I can start that. We've always been a remote Zoom type company. I think we're on 6 continents now, about 300 employees. But we did close our regional offices and empower our teams to work from home. We've slowly looked at reopening the different offices around the world. Fortunately, I think our team was pretty savvy in terms of understanding how to have virtual meetings and a virtual experience. And then working with customers in terms of maybe video demos versus sitting in a conference room and having a real tailored bespoke demo of things of that nature. In terms of headcount, I've recently hired new people on my team and we're looking to hire more. So I do see positive trends in the marketplace, which is exciting. But we really try to take a measured approach from product engineering to team rollouts to partner and customer events, and really kind of look at that virtual setting first, such as today with this summit before the summit with a bunch of talking heads on the screen. It's interesting.
I've found Hampton in our business, this probably isn't totally shocking, but it seems like the adoption kind of goes along with the age of the employee. I tend to be in the older age group and was less excited about moving into the video conferencing world. But I think most of our younger employees were very comfortable with it and jumped right into it. We still have some laggards that we're trying to pull along, and even myself, I probably use it about 50% of the time. But I think we're getting there slowly. I think it's going to be the way that we're all going to have to interact moving forward. So I think we just got to all get comfortable with it.
Agreed. And I can speak for RevIO too. We had interacted quite a bit with our clients and with our partners via Zoom. So it was an unknown adjustment, what was going to be the outcome, but we found a way to really adapt to it and to capture it to really where the biggest challenge has been us communicating internally with our own employees versus our clients, because they were used to that interaction. So thankfully from our standpoint, it wasn't as much of an adjustment, but there was adjustment that was needed. So great feedback from everyone there. One final item I think that ties into that, and I wanted to propose to the three of you, was learning from the disruption that we've been encountering. How do you account for the risks or surprises in your planning for future innovation? You think about what we've learned so far in this current environment, but there's some known unknowns, I guess, that we think about a vaccine and how it's going to influence our ability to travel and to go see clients firsthand in trade shows. But as you think about your innovation planning and kind of the current environment of what we know and what we're expecting, how are you accounting for that? And what are the kind of areas where that you see the opportunity to help kind of alleviate the concerns that might be around those risks or surprises. And Forrest, I guess we'll start with you if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I think this is very generic, and I know all of us probably on this panel agree with it, but being flexible. That's the big thing that we've been pushing to all of our staff members and team members is we got to be flexible. What you're doing today may change tomorrow. How you're interacting today may change tomorrow. And so we've just made that commitment inside our company to always look at all the opportunities and how can we not pigeonhole ourselves and put ourselves in a corner. You know, just a simple example, we were looking at buying the building that we're in up early as January this year. And I can tell you that's off the table now. We have no interest in owning a building. And so things like that, you know, we're long-term strategies have now changed. And I think that we're in a better spot for the future to be able to not, to make decisions so that we don't pigeonhole ourselves.
So how about you, John?
We're definitely taking a measured approach. I think managing expectations internally and externally, and also holding our teams accountable, frankly. You know, just yesterday speaking with our CEO, he mentioned they will move mountains on the customer's behalf, assuming it is a real tangible use case and a tangible opportunity to help the customer. You know, we'll move mountains. It just has to be very specific ask. We're fortunate we're of a medium size where we're nimble enough to switch from our standard platform, if you will, to more of a tailored solution as required. But we'll factor that into the product roadmap, but we're not just grabbing ideas from all over and trying to implement them all at once. It's a measured approach.
So how about you, Brian?
Yeah, so you know, in our business, I mentioned it earlier, we spend a lot of time thinking about and figuring out how do we mitigate risk in the business. And out of that will come sometimes some type of innovation or some type of new idea. Specifically, you know, what we do in the business is once a quarter, the executive team gets together to evaluate different risks. And those could be either internal, external, from a new competitor, whatever the case may be. You know, one that we identified a couple of years back was, I don't know how many of us live in the Atlanta area, but you know, if you get a snowstorm in Atlanta, the city's going to shut down for like a week. So we've got to think about that in terms of how do we get a tax return filed? You know, how do we get payments made? How do we continue to operate if we can't come to the office, if we can't cut checks? So, you know, having that kind of quarterly type of discussion in terms of what risks can we reasonably predict, you know, allows us to put some processes in place to mitigate those scenarios when or if they do happen. So I'd also come back, you know, Forrest said it again, the flexibility piece of it, because none of us predicted what happened earlier this week, earlier this year. But I think we've all been able to adjust to it, change our businesses, and keep moving forward.
You mentioned the processes, Brian. I'd be curious to hear when you develop those in those quarterly meetings, are they placed on a shelf and they're, you know, just in case, or you break in case of emergency, or is it kind of made known to the organization that says, hey, here are the risks and surprises we've identified, and here's what we expect to go through should we encounter those types of surprises?
Yeah, it depends on what the risk is. That it may lead us to change something immediately within our technology platform. So it could be a more immediate impact, or it could be something that we do kind of sit it aside, and if this happens, this is what we're going to do. We've at least thought about it and have at least put a plan in place. So it really depends on, you know, what the severity of the potential risk would be, that would dictate how we would go about mitigating for it.
I'd probably open that up to you, Forrest, or John as well. I mean, how are you guys communicating when you identify what you believe are potential risks or surprises out there? How is that communicated, or is it communicated across your organization, and to what extent?
Where to begin on that one?
That's a pretty broad one.
Yeah, we definitely take a long view, a measured approach in the short term, and then attempt to telegraph things as they occur and not have surprises. So we build a business case. We'll work with our team, our senior management team, and say, here's an inkling of what we're thinking. Let us get back to you in short order with more of a business plan or a full, compelling, discussion with these data points as compared to just rushing into something.
Sure.
I don't know where to add any more than that. I mean, it's one of those things you just got to be prepared for and have contingency plans and be ready for them. So.
I agree with that. Well, I think that concludes the topics that we enlisted to discuss today. I guess I'll just close by offering it to the panel. If there's any final thoughts or comments you guys wanted to make, I'll allow that since we've got a little bit of time. But otherwise, I'll just say thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thanks for putting this together.
It's been a pleasure having all three of you. And again, it's been very beneficial for me to hear those ideas that we can take back, not just for our organization, but to offer it up to the broader audience and all the attendees. It's been very valuable. So thank you so much for your time and your participation. And to all the attendees, thank you as well.